Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call a regularly scheduled meeting for the Dorado Irrigation District to order for Monday, April 24th already. Please, Jen, roll call.
Directors Osborne, Dwyer, Veerkamp, and Anzini and Day present. General Manager Abercrombie, General Counsel Polson, Clerk of the Board Sullivan present.
All right, Director Anzini, would you do the honors this morning with our Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. We should be praying the project next door goes all right and doesn't impede our able to get in and out of here all week, or probably for the next 6 weeks. Okay, we need to adopt the agenda. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Thank you, Director Dwyer. Do we have any comments from the audience? Any comments from anybody online, Jen?
Hold on for 1 second.
Okay.
If members of the public would like to address the board at any public comment period during this meeting, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Veerkamp, it does not appear there are any members participating online for the adoption of today's agenda. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right. Communications, General Manager, Employee Recognition.
Good morning. Yes, I have one this morning. The district received a comment from a customer named Kathleen complimenting Joel Beal, a distribution operator, and Leland Kay, a construction and maintenance worker. She was very pleased with their overall workmanship and her interactions with them as they worked on a repair near their home. Kathleen also commented that she thinks highly of the district as a whole, including the little extra things we provide our customers, such as retrofits and the waterfront newsletter. So again, great example of excellent service we provide the customers.
Thank you very much,
Concludes the
Jim.
recognition.
And thank you for the employees and their great work. Public comment. This is the time we would take public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. Anything from the audience? Jan, anybody online which can make a public comment?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. This is the public comment period for items not appearing on today's agenda. President Veerkamp, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak.
All right, communications, General Manager.
None?
All right, Clerk of the Board, to the board. Jen, anything?
None today, thank you.
All right, any directors, any comments?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Microphone. I attended the Mountain County Water Regional Association's board meeting. It was in Auburn 10 days ago, and there were several items that we were agreeing to support, bills that go into Sacramento. 3 of them were sent to you in your email on the motion to support or to not support, and it's 3 items regarding water utility, and funding. So I'm sure you've received those. I just want to announce that we also are having another meeting. It's going to be in the urban waters in San Jose, Santa Clara, probably get a tour at Google and other large facilities, just as part of getting to know the other water agencies who want to know who rural water agencies and what we do. So it's a very good opportunity for us to go down and share, and they get to feel, they come to us also. They came last year to see our Caldor Fire Tour. So it's a urban water and the rural water agencies.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I just want to make sure that it's clear that Mountain Counties was not reaching out to the board to poll the board
No.
on support or opposition of any bill.
Thank you
What
for-
Mountain Counties does is they send it to the district, and the district decides whether or not we put our name or support those bills.
Thank you for clarifying that.
All right, Director Osborne.
Just a thank you to the staff and the crews that got the flume going. It's been a rough winter, and the forebay is filling up and looking good. So thanks again for the extraordinary work with fighting snow and rain and hail and heat, sleet and whatever. And the other thing is, I've got numerous calls from people wanting to know when we're going to stock Sly Park, and I said, it's up to the Carp and Buzzard Patrol, the Fish and Game. And so if we have any influence with them, would you ask them to please throw a load of fish in there to get them off my back?
Yeah, George, you'll probably be the first one right there at the truck. With the net. With the net. Yeah, very good. Just quickly, LAFCO is dark this month of April. We do have an item on the agenda for voting for, and that's consistent with who is currently on LAFCO as those appointees. All right, with that, consent calendar. Anybody have anything they want to pull, or Alan would like to pull item 3 for brief discussion, I believe. Anybody else? All right, any comment on any of the items on consent? Nothing?
We need a first and a second.
Oh, that's true.
Move one, absent 3.
Second. A motion and a second, and we have pulled 3. Now, any comment from the public relative to the consent calendar? All right, anybody online?
If any members of the public would like to address the board on the adoption of today's consent calendar minus consent calendar item 3, now is your time. President Veerkamp, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to address the adoption of today's consent calendar. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right, we will now go to the pulled item, item 3, engineering. Brian Mueller, you've got an hour report, I believe, on this? Yeah. Director Day.
No, I didn't want this just to go by quietly. I wanted us to celebrate it. And I think it's wonderful news. And also, I don't know, Dan, if you want to announce that he and I are going to be publishing a paper called the Acorn Report in Scientific America. So with that, I'll move option 1.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
Very good. Thank you, Lori. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, anybody in the public want to comment on the item? Anybody online?
If members of the public would like to address the board on the approval of consent calendar item number 3, option 1, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Anzini. Now is the time. Please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Veerkamp, no one appears to have any comments. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the action items. Item 7, I will be recusing myself.
Actually, we're going to do the public hearing, which
Oh,
is
I'm sorry.
item number 6.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
pronounced it. Never mind. Action item, public hearing, engineering. And we have to open the public hearing.
At 9:10 a.m.
Okay, and who's presenting? There he is. Sequa.
Morning, members of the board. Mike Barron, Environmental Review Analyst here at the district. Today I'll be presenting to you the right-of-way reinforcement program, or what we call the ROWR, and be requesting your consideration of the CEQA Mitigated Negative Declaration. Today I'll be discussing the environmental review process, summarizing the comments that staff received throughout on the environmental document, and then asking for the board's consideration to adopt the environmental document. As you're aware, the board approved dedicated staff positions for this program in 2021. Operations staff have periodically provided updates to the board. And then during this time frame, staff have also been working on the environmental review components of the program. And then just to discuss the program need a bit, as a reminder, the main focus of the ROWR program is to address overgrown vegetation along transmission mains, because many of the locations within the utility corridor have become overgrown with trees and other vegetation, where limited access precludes maintenance and emergency repairs, as well as operational challenges, including the use of air relief, blow-off, and isolation valves. And continuing the summary of issues, we think it's important to provide you with a summary of issues and provide an update on what has been happening since implementation of the ROWR program. District crews are currently completing work along Camino Conduit. That work has been mostly located on EID and federally owned property, as well as some private property in the Pollock Pines area. It's important to note these are also areas where no sensitive resources are likely present, and the current work qualified as exemptions under CEQA. The ISM&D for the program is intended to streamline the ROWR activities. Since the program will cover the whole 88-mile transmission system, the ISM&D will provide a roadmap for staff to follow, so resource surveys and regulatory authorizations can be completed in advance of crews working in sensitive areas. So really the ISM&D is intended to streamline the ROWR activities. And just to summarize some of the benefits of that, it's time consuming and costly to move heavy equipment around. It'll allow crews to work in a linear fashion. And the program roadmap would ultimately result in more efficiency and cost savings.
Can you remind me why this is not a categorical exemption as opposed to doing the mitigated declaration?
Again, it's the geographic extent of the entire transmission system. And currently the crews, we've been working in non-sensitive areas. We're going to have numerous sensitive areas as we move through the program, whether it be riparian areas, sensitive species. And so by entirely encapsulating the whole program under this ISMND and looking at the whole transmission system, it'll provide more efficiency, and we'll be able to use the mitigation measures as a roadmap.
Thank you.
Then just to provide you, I just wanted to provide a map that shows the 88 miles of the transmission mains that deliver treated water throughout the district. As you can see, the transmission mains are generally aligned in an east-west direction, extending from Sly Park and Pollock Pines to the El Dorado Hills, kind of Cameron Park area down there to the west. And also here I wanted to provide you with a photo that shows the before and after of a typical segment of the Camino conduit pipeline, which really highlights the need for the program. We have the before and after on the left and right there. That stump is that tree right there in the front. And it's a nice open, clear corridor for the pipeline. And then this slide kind of summarizes the program activities, which will involve removal of trees less than 12 inches in diameter, clearing brush, shrubs, and other woody material in the alignments. Clearance widths would range up to 60 feet, and then removal of hazard trees. The types of treatment include chainsaws, use of masticators, chipping and broadcasting, lopping and scattering, and then also occasional pile burning during the obviously non-fire season. Now I'd like to provide you with more detail regarding the environmental review process for the proposed program, which means prior to approving the program, the EID must consider the potential environmental effects of implementing the program. And as board members, you're aware the district must comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, the CEQA guidelines, and EID's procedures to implement CEQA. The purpose of CEQA is to describe the potential environmental impacts of the program, identify ways to avoid or lessen those impacts, and then promote coordination with public agencies and encourage public participation. CEQA also provides agencies and public an opportunity to engage in the review process as well. And then the activities necessary to implement the ROWR program requires environmental review by the district pursuant to CEQA, where EID is the lead agency under CEQA. Staff, and in this case, staff prepared an ISMND, which evaluated the potential environmental effects associated with the program. The ISMND resulted in mitigation monitoring reporting program, which is essentially provides the roadmap for crews and staff, and it identifies the feasible mitigation measures that avoid, mitigate, or reduce potential environmental effects to a less than significant level. The analysis in the ISMND prepared for the program resulted in the following mitigation measures for some resource topics. We've had mitigation measures for bioresources, cultural resources, tribal cultural resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials. For example, hazards and hazardous materials requires implementation of a fire safety plan. As part of the CEQA process, we released our ISMND for a 30-day public review starting in early March, ending in April 6, 2023. Because of the large geographic extent of the program area, we performed extensive outreach for this. We sent out almost 4,000 letters to property owners within 300 feet of the program area. So that's from the pipeline out, all the way from east to west. So quite extensive outreach. In addition to our extensive mailing effort, we also posted notifications to our standard lists, providing copies of the program documents to the state clearinghouse, persons requesting public notice, responsible and trustee agencies, the Mountain Democrat, the El Dorado County Recorder Clerk, and EID website and EID headquarters. We also worked with our communications staff to design a dedicated ROWR program webpage on our website that folks can get updates and review the program documents. Public comments. During the public review, staff received a total of 11 comments on the ISMND. One standard form letter from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. And then also I spoke directly with 7 of the 10 commenters, provided information related to many of their concerns, showing locations, explaining the program. And then in general, some of the comments received by staff included comments, concerns with clearance widths of up to 60 feet, impacts to agricultural operations, tree removal in general, property damage that the crews can cause, and unauthorized access to private properties. And those comments are provided, the actual comment letters are provided in your agenda packets. And so the findings of the ISMND, no comments received required substantial revisions to the ISMND or MMRP. There were no avoidable significant effects additionally identified, and mitigation measures defined in the MMRP are adequate to reduce potential impacts to less than significant. And then today we're here to ask the board to adopt our ISMND MMRP, which will complete the CEQA environmental review. And this adoption demonstrates the board has considered the ISMND MMRP and comments received. For the record, I'll need to read straight from the remaining slides. So board options. Option 1, adopt the proposed mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring and reporting program. Make the following findings pursuant to CEQA. Based on the whole of the record, there's no substantial evidence that the program will have a significant effect on the environment. The mitigated negative declaration reflects EID's independent judgment and analysis. Specify that documents or other material which constitute the record of proceedings upon which this decision is based shall be in custody of the clerk to the board at El Dorado Irrigation District headquarters and approve the program in accordance with CEQA. Or option 2, take other actions as directed by the board. And option 3, take no action. And staff recommends option 1.
Move 1 for discussion.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have motion and a second. Discussion of the board?
Yeah, the offline discussions I've had with some of the ag community and discussions we had at the ag dinner, I'm assured them and talking to the general manager that we will make sure the staff is aware unless there's an absolute line break where we have to go in and fix it, we will not be disrupting agricultural products or grow vineyards, blueberries, whatever. So we're going to stay away from that and just work on other places and not disrupt any ag community, any ag issues. Okay?
You know, President Verkamp, I think I've had a few discussions with those folks as well. and I've been privy to the update my staff's given me. This is a formality of complying with CEQA, but the staff has been doing an excellent job in meeting with the customer, talking to them about what we'd like to achieve, what their concerns are, and then coming up with a plan to address that customer by customer. So I know there's some concerns out there, but again, my staff have done an excellent job in working with the customers to make sure we come up with a good solution for establish some sort of right-of-way in there so we can operate our system, but also address their concerns.
Okay, any other comments from directors at this time? At this point, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak relative to this item? If you'd like to, please come on up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Steve Rutkowski.
One more
I'm
time,
sorry,
I don't
sir.
think Jen got it.
One more time, what was your name?
Steve Rutkowski. And I want to know on the 60 feet, is that mandatory? Or is that just going to be, they're just going to cut through the property, just what they want to do?
So what we'll do is we'll get all your questions, and then we'll have staff answer them here in a few minutes. All right?
Yeah, because that's the big thing to me. You don't need to do 60 feet. 60 feet, if you go through a person's property, you're tearing it up pretty good, and who's going to fix that tear up?
Okay, we'll address it here in just a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Collins. First of all, I'd like to say that we've had several times to be able to talk to your folks. They've been great. I've dealt with a lot of people in my lifetime and had a lot of meetings, and your people have been great. One of them met us in In-N-Out parking lot. So we were able to talk to them. But one of my questions is, has any thought been given to when you mitigate the 60-foot or whatever the width is of fire protection, whether they would go into areas that are more prone to fires, whether there's any thought to that on the timeline, or whether they're just going to go from point A to point B, the 88 feet, 88 miles, or whatever the deal is. We've got a piece of property in the Pollock Pines area down into the Weber Creek area, which I think would make a substantial break for the people in the Pollock Pines area. We've had 2 fires in that area in my lifetime. I've been in the fire service, retired for 44 years, so a lot of that means a lot more to me than it would maybe, to other people, and I would look at that. And the other question I have is, on the line, we've been told that they're going to place fire hydrants along the line. What are they using for that? Are they going by the Uniform Fire Code or the plumbing code or whatever it is? But that's basically it. But thank you for your time, and I look forward to getting kept up to date when they're going to use it. Some folks were down there a week or 2 ago, I think, and did some preliminary surveying or whatever on there, and we really appreciate them getting the information out to us. So we've got gates they have to open and things like that. So thank you again for that, and I really appreciate the professionalism that has been gone our way anyway. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll answer those questions here in a couple of minutes. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come on up and voluntarily identify yourself. No hurry. Just got to watch out for Mike's shoelaces there.
They are very visible. so-
Yes, they are.
My name is Gosha Porvit. I live on property. ETM 2 goes through my property. I have a couple of questions. For some reason, I missed the time when to comment. So first question before I forget, what is MLCC stand for? Is it a concrete pipe or whatever? Because I have this 27 MLCC going through my property. So I wonder what that is. That's a question to engineering.
You can answer that one, yeah. Go ahead.
MLCC. Well, anyway, so there's no air valves, no other entrances to the pipe or anything on my property. What is your need to go on my property? Because it's usually locked, and I have dogs. And what is I know quite well where the pipe goes because my property was surveyed, but what kind of, like, if I have 3 foot, maybe not 3, more 2.5 feet pine growing on it, do you have to remove it?
A tree or?
Ah.
Okay.
We will answer those in just a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
And the pipe really goes really close to my house. Right on the edge of the easement is my house, and I have extensive garden.
Okay,
So.
very good. Well, thank you for the comments, and we'll,
And how deep? I wonder how deep that MLCC is. Thank you.
all right, anybody else in the audience? Anybody online, Jen, with any questions?
If members of the public would like to address the board on public hearing item number 6, now is your time. And I would just like to say that if you're participating by phone and you would like to speak, you just press *9 on your phone, and that will raise your hand on our side. I will unmute, and it'll give you your time to speak. So *9 to raise your hand, and *6 to mute and unmute your telephone. In addition, if you're participating through the computer, you should be able to hover to the bottom of your screen, and there will be a raise hand button. You click on that button, and it'll notify us on this side that you are wishing to speak. President Camp, it does not appear that any members of the public participating online have any comments regarding public hearing item number 6.
All right, we will go ahead and go back to the questions, and I believe question 1 was the 60-foot question, Mike?
Yeah, so when these pipelines were originally constructed by the Bureau of Reclamation, depending on which pipeline you're on, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was predominantly a 30-foot easement from the center line of the pipe, so 60-foot typical maybe. But over time, as parcels were split, changes in property ownership, title reporting, a lot of the easements or lack thereof for some of the private properties have range everywhere from nothing to 20 to 30. And so for this description, we would like to do 60 feet, but if you have a 20-foot easement and you tell us that we need to stay in that 20-foot easement, our crews will stay within that easement unless some other agreement can be reached.
Okay, and I believe then the second question was fire protection measures during, while we're making the break. Obviously, we're very receptive and open to that, as critical as fire danger can be, but if you want to address that also.
Yeah, so I think I go back to where our crews are currently working. The goal for our crews currently is to finish the Camino conduit alignment, which stretches from Sly Park to Res 22A in Camino. So the intention is to finish out that entire alignment. And that may be the question that the public was asking. And then our intention after finishing the Camino conduit, we'll be working on the resource surveys, implementing the program on EDM 1 and 2 the next 2 years.
Okay, and then,
But Michael, what type of fire suppression equipment do we have out there while the crew's working?
We do have a fire truck, not a fire truck, but we have water storage and all the necessary equipment that is required as part of a fire safe plan for the crews to have on site while they work.
I have a
Director Dwyer, and then
I think that part of the question was the Weber Creek drainage, which is outside of the easement for the pipeline, and that's kind of a separate issue from what we're trying to do here. The district does have a vegetation management plan, and it's been pretty aggressive in trying to obtain grants and self-fund some of the clearing in those drainages. So they're kind of two different things, but we're certainly aware and sensitive to the risk of areas that we control that are in need of some mitigation.
management,
Yeah, thanks.
Director Day, and then Director Osborne.
Yeah, I think one of her questions, for instance, is it's the pipeline runs near her house, through her garden. We're not going in and just bulldozing and clear cutting everything down. We're assessing, how would access be if there was a leak? And obviously, if there was a leak under the garden, that could be reasonably accessed. I just want for you to address, it's not a matter of bulldozing down everything, that we're doing it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that, as the program progresses, the outreach doesn't just end with the MND and the ISMND that we've presented today. The crews will still, our process so far is to send a letter to the folks before we even survey the pipeline. And then once our crews are going to be surveying out there, we actually attempt to make phone calls to the property owners. And then also, before crews will enter someone's property, there'll be more outreach and contact, and things like gardens or agricultural plants or whatever it might be. The crews will walk the alignment with the property owner and talk to them for their specific, what they have on their property and their specific concerns, because there's a lot of different scenarios for sure, depending on the properties.
Right, I mean, for instance, up there, there can be beautiful dogwoods naturally growing, and, maybe that doesn't need to be cut, so long as there's reasonable access.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I hope that helps a little bit.
Literally, I said I have no.
Okay, hang on, we won't do any back and
No,
forth.
I understand,
We'll-
but the pipeline is there, and if there was a leak, EID would need access to fix the leak, even though there's no current access to it.
No structures on my property.
Okay,
Okay, hang on,
I need
let
to,
Ellen back and forth,
if
yeah.
you're gonna chat with her, I just need her to come back to the microphone, because we have people participating online, and because we do Zoom, we need to allow them the same benefit to listen and hear.
Maybe Mike can address, it's for not only fire access, or fire prevention, but it's also so that if we needed to repair,
Yeah.
even if there aren't external fixtures, please address that.
Yeah, I mean, so if there's a pipeline break, we need to have access to the pipeline. And if we did need to enter through someone's property, that it might be fenced. I'm hearing some comments related to grading and, ruining the property by moving heavy equipment. We are, as part of the program, we have a requirement for a water pollution control plan, which includes BMPs and fiber rolls and what have it. And also our crews wouldn't leave property in kind of that disarray as far as entering and ruining anything.
What are BMPs?
Best
Best
management
management
practices,
practices
yeah.
for water quality.
We have to go out and we have to either spread chips or spread straw or do whatever, because we can't have erosion.
Yeah.
So we try to leave the property in the best possible situation we can, and we're required to do that. So very, very important to understand that. Let's get through the questions, Director Osborne, and then if she still has another, we'll do another one.
Switching my old hat back to Chief of CAL FIRE, one of the places that was worrisome in the 4 counties that I ran around was Weber Creek. Depending on where it started, we could have fire into Camino Heights or into Gold Ridge Forest, and we could lose a lot of homes. And so we need to do as much vegetation management as we possibly can within the realm of our authority but with the proviso that we will meet with each landowner and make sure that we're not being too disruptive.
I believe there was a question as well about hydrants. Are we installing hydrants along the line anywhere?
As part of this actual project or program that doesn't include fire hydrant installation, I don't know if there's another project that.
We'll have Brian Mueller come up and talk about the Weber Creek and the Intertie project, and that's included right-of-way clearing and the fire hydrants after we
different
finish all the questions.
Okay, very good. All right, and then there was a question as well about the pipe itself, depth and so forth, type.
Hi, I'm Noel Russell, Construction Maintenance Supervisor. I oversee the right-of-way program as far as the physical side of it. So the question came up, what is MLCC? It's what's referred to as mortar-lined concrete coated pipe. Mortar-lined concrete coated pipe. It's a steel cylinder pipe, and it's commonly used for transmission mains. To speak to the depth of that pipeline, they can measure anywhere from 3 to up to even 30 feet deep, depending on the location and what the specific topographical challenges were when that pipeline was installed.
And I think it's important to note as well, some of ththese pipelines we inherited as
Yes.
part of different projects that we've purchased and so forth. Sort of like the old city plans downtown, you got to be careful what you wish for or what you inherited. And we don't know exactly where they're all at and how deep they are, but we're trying to get that handle.
And fortunately, with the MLCC pipe, it is conductive, so it's traceable, so we can, through the use of
figure that
equipment,
out.
we can figure out exactly where it is underground.
Right.
So.
I think the important point is here is, I hope, and it sounds like we are, working very well with people. And if there's a question that we don't answer, or there's a issue that we are concerned about, make sure that we connect, and we'll come out and work to mitigate best we can and try not to disrupt too much. I do have a comment about easements, but I'll hold that till we're ready to hopefully formally adopt this. All right, I want to make sure we get all the questions answered, so any other questions, ma'am, that you may have?
Please come
Come on
to
up to the mic, sorry.
public
Yeah.
podium. Thank you.
Everybody can hear.
So are you going to cut all big trees, whatever is within the 20-foot easement?
Go ahead and answer that, Mike.
Potentially, yes. If it's over the pipeline, we need to remove those trees.
We would be out there with you, and we would walk the pipeline with you and show you what we'd like to take out and what isn't going to be taken out.
Because that could be devastating.
It absolutely could. You're absolutely right.
Because it's just all architecture, all landscaping of my property, it's just right in front of my property.
So this is why we reach out to each landowner individually, and we walk and survey that piece of property with each landowner and take all of their concerns into consideration. Just because we're looking for 60 feet doesn't mean that we're going to come in and tell you, I'm sorry, ma'am, we're going to cut all these trees down. If it's something that we can work with by mutual agreement, then we can certainly do that. But we take each one on a case-by-case basis. So we'll meet with you individually when it comes time to have that discussion.
Okay, and also I wonder why you are talking about 60 feet when I gave you only 20 feet easement.
So if we have a 20-foot easement, we're not going to go outside of that easement without your permission. But the reason for the 60-foot wide swath is to give us the opportunity to operate, maintain, and repair our pipeline. So you can imagine if you have a 36-inch pipeline that's 10 feet deep, there's going to be quite a bit of real estate required for staging of materials and equipment and personnel to make that repair. So that's really the big driver behind that number. But we would certainly not go outside of our 20-foot easement without individual permission from a landowner like yourself.
And also, since you said that the depth varies from 3 to 30 feet, is there any way I can know how deep is the pipe on my property?
We can give you an approximation when we do come out to do the survey and locate the pipeline. We can give
But
you
you don't have like a map which shows?
we do not.
No. Okay, it's just okay, you measure by the.
With our
the
locating
air,
equipment.
air, yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah, so we'll work diligently to work with you and hopefully keep things as streamlined and clean and neat as we can within that 20 feet. But again, I can tell you, if there were a break on this size of a main, we would be wider than 20 feet with equipment working in there. And that was when they put it in. So I mean, that's probably worst-case scenario, but you get one of these big excavators, like right over here working right now, it's 20 feet wide by itself. So it's very complicated to do these sorts of potential repairs. Hopefully, we don't need that, but what I heard from our staff is they'll come out, they'll individually look at the material and the pipe and try to give you the best approximation and keep the footprint as small as possible.
I'm planning to redo my parking. This is the front of my house, basically. And the corner of the house is right on 20 feet from, on the easement. So would you recommend that I do this parking this year?
Well, I think it's
I'm
gonna
s-
take
I'm-
staff going out and getting
Okay.
eyes on your property as well, and they'll do their best to make sure, and if there's any issue, we'll work through them. We're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna tear down your house or your parking area or anything like that. We'll do our best to make sure we don't.
The parking is 40 years old, but I want to replace it and make it presentable. So is there any way that I can work with you guys so somebody can come over sooner than later? So I can progress with my plans?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me offline, I'd be happy to talk
Okay.
with you about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Noel. Yep. All right, any other questions that we haven't answered?
I think just the stuff on Weber Creek and the intertie, Brian Mueller will come up and address that.
Morning, Brian.
Good morning. Yeah, there's a question about potential hydrants. So excuse me, the question may have related to the Sly Park Intertie project. So we've got a pipeline replacement project in our capital plan scheduled for construction next year. That pipeline goes from near Sly Park Road or a treatment plant at Sly Park Road in Sierra Springs area and goes directly north to the Pollock Pines area and Highway 50. So with that project, we are looking at additional hydrants where we can on that line. There's a lot of different hydraulics with that, so it's not like we'll be able to install hydrants, anywhere and everywhere, but we are looking at additional hydrants where it's feasible at those locations.
Very good. All right, any further comments or questions? Jim, you good? Done with stuff from staff? All right. I believe, Mike, you presented our options. At this point, I'll close the public hearing.
No.
We can't
not
do that
yet.
after?
So what I'd like to do is we already have a first and a second on the table, but because we have so much interest, I'd like to do one last call for folks
Okay.
online and in the audience. If members of the public would like to address the board during this item or any public comment period, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. For those participating in person, now is your time. For those online, again, hover your mouse to the bottom of the screen and hit that raise hand button. Or if you're participating on the phone, press *9. That will notify us on this end. When I allow you the ability to speak, you will do a *6. So we'll just give folks 1 second here for the last call. President Veerkamp, it does not appear there are any additional members of the public wishing to address the board on public hearing item number 6. Option 1, moved by Director Osborne and seconded by Director Day. I believe we are ready for the vote.
Okay, 1 second. Anybody, directors, want to comment on anything more on this item? I will make one. As I testified before Congress a little about a month and a half or so ago, easements were something that we were talking about with under NEPA. I don't see it any differently with CEQA. I've traveled extensively throughout different states as well as different countries, and they all protect their easements extensively because they use them as fire breaks. I too have a fire background, and it makes perfect sense. So we will work, and it sounds like I've heard that, as best we can within you, but when you have an easement, it means something, and unfortunately, people don't read that sometimes when they buy their property. So with that, we'll call for the vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting aye. Motion carries unanimously. You may now close the public hearing.
I will close the public hearing. Mike, thank you very much for your presentation. Brian, thanks for adding in, and thank you for being here and asking the questions as well. All right, now we will go to action item 7, which I will recuse myself. Have a good day.
Director Day,
And I'll
he's
let Director Day
recusing
take this
himself
item.
from action item number 7.
Sorry, I was still thinking about the last one. All right, we'll go to,
One, that we pay our bills.
Move to.
I didn't even announce which one it was. It's number 7. Is there any public comment on ratifying the EID general warrant registers?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 7, option 1, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Osborne. Now is your time. Vice President Day, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 7. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5 voting aye, motion carries. And for the record, for those that may have not heard, Director Veerkamp recused himself just from action item number 7.
All right, we will move on to action item number 8. Mr. Money.
Good morning. John Money, Senior Civil Engineer for the district, and I'm here this morning to discuss contract amendments for geotechnical investigations and survey for the Sly Park Intertie Improvement Project. So we've been in front of the board numerous times for this project. This is the first time I've actually exceeded 2 slides. But starting off, we were before the board in December of 2021 to authorize a grant application for DWR, which staff was eventually or ultimately successful in securing about $10 million in construction funding for the project. Then in February 2022, we were before the board to approve a engineering design contract with Waterworks Engineering, followed by inclusion of this project in the most recent 23 to 27 capital improvement plan back in November. Subsequently, we've been in front of the board to do a contract amendment to Waterworks' engineering design contract to include additional services that were outside of the scope of the initial proposal, followed by another contract amendment that was for easement acquisition services to, the January 23 one was for easement acquisition services. The February 23 was for additional design services for Waterworks. Summary of the issues why we're here today. Again, the design is or we are under design for the Sly Park Intertie. We've completed the basic design report and draft 60% design of the project. And during that process, we've identified additional geotechnical investigations that are needed, as well as additional topographic survey services. So again, this is an overview of the project alignment. Again, the project extends from Reservoir 1 down to Reservoir A, just downstream from Sly Park Dam. Our initial hope during the construction of this project was that we have easements in place and that we could basically replace the pipeline in place. And largely that's the case. However, as we've reviewed the initial survey data that came in, our title documents, and aerial data, we've discovered several areas along the pipeline alignment where we're going to have to vary the alignments, shift it left to right, 5, 10 feet. That's for numerous reasons. One is that, again, when this was built under emergency conditions, we didn't optimally place the pipeline. So in several locations, the pipeline butts right up against property lines, which makes it non-constructable back in the existing alignment. So in order to, the largest reason we're doing this geotech work is to minimize risk both for the district, for change orders as we get into construction, and then also to minimize the risk premium our contractor will put on there by identifying the soil and what they're going to have to dig through if any adjustments are needed outside this alignment, which we are intending. So again, that larger background geotechnical analysis is going to require 8 borings along that pipeline alignment, as well as 9 geophysical refraction surveys. And again, that helps us identify the density of the rock and soils that we're going to be digging through. The second scope is we have, as we go down the hill from Ridgeway down to the bottom of Weber Creek, we've identified a potential mill site where they had deposited woody, basically sawdust over our pipe. The extent of that sawdust really will determine whether or not we can reuse that alignment and easement in that section. So we're going to have some pretty extensive investigations. We're going to basically have to dig up and identify where the pipe is and the depth of that fill, which could be up to 30 feet. So that's a significant effort. And then finally, at Reservoir A, we're going to go ahead and pot line. Initially we intended for the new pipeline to terminate basically at the north end of that site, and due to hydraulics and the configuration of the site, we're going to extend it all the way through the Reservoir A site to the south end of where the POM and hooks into the clear well at that site. So we want to go ahead and pothole any utilities again so we can refine the design and minimize the risk as we go out to construction. And very last, the pump station will also be located on that south side of the site, so we need a couple extra additional borings so that we can refine the foundation design of that pump station site. The Pleasant Oak, Maine?
The POM is the Pleasant Oak main.
Right. So our main distribution line, one of the lines we were likely just talking about. In addition, we've identified, again, some additional work that we previously approved for this project. Unfortunately, both those segments were not included in the initial surveys. So the first is what we call Segment 1, which extends from Ridgeway up to our Sportsman's Pump Station along Pony Express Drive, and Segment 3, and again, that extends from the north side of Reservoir A down to the south side where the clear well is. So we're requiring additional survey in those areas, and then again, tying in that pothole data to our final design. So our funding request today is for additional geotechnical services through Waterworks of just under $125,000, and additional topographic surveys for $21,680 for a combined total of $146,668. Again, normally we wouldn't approach the board for an on-call contract for $21,000. However, our previous survey contract was $90,000, so that puts us above that threshold where we require board authorization. Again, just a summary of where we're at on the funding and schedule. So again, we have secured $750,000 in design work or in grants to offset our design work, as well as $10 million for construction services. The remaining portions of the project will be offset through or paid for through a 2024 bond issuance. We are still planning to go to construction next year, so we're planning on wrapping up design here right towards the end of 2023, as well as our environmental permitting efforts. As far as board options this morning, so staff is recommending option 1, which is to approve contract amendments to Waterworks Engineers Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $124,988 for geotechnical investigations, and to Area West Engineers Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $21,680 for additional topographic surveys, and to authorize additional funding for the project of $164,668 for the Sly Park Intertie Improvements Project, project number 21079. Again, staff's recommendation is option 1. Any questions with
Okay.
that?
Director Osborne?
Move 1.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you, Director Anzini. At this point, any comments from the public? Any comments online, Jen?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 8, option 1, moved by Director Osborne, second by Director Anzini, now is your time. President Veerkamp, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right, we're now at action item number 9. Mr. Money again, please.
Okay. So again, John Money, Senior Civil Engineer. This item is to present to the board the options to award a contract for construction for the diversion facilities upgrades project. So again, this project has been around for a while. Most recently, we're in front of the board in June of 21 to award a engineering design contract to GHD for design of the project, followed by incorporation in November of the project in the 2023 to 2027 capital improvement plan. And then just here in last February, we're here before the board to authorize payment to PG&E for a new electrical service at the site and for an additional funding to capitalize labor so that we could, again, rebid this project. Just some background information. The project is, the diversion site is located about 1.5 miles west of Kybers, just downstream of the confluence of the North Fork and South Silver Forks of the American River. Basically, the diversion is the point where we divert water from the South Fork of the American River into the El Dorado Canal, eventually down to the forebay. A little background on the project. So again, I just mentioned that we're located near Kybers. There's a set of compressors there at the site that are used to clear fish screens. Those are required, again, for our regulatory requirements. And in general, the site is kind of lacking for, it's been scabbed onto, to put it kind of bluntly, multiple times. And so it's kind of a mishmash of electrical systems, and the reliability of the site has been in question. So really there's three main drivers for the project. One is that the existing compressor equipment that is used to free debris from those screens is located inside our existing electrical room. So basically it's right there, housed next to our network equipment and electronic controls. The compressor tanks themselves, with the compressors, pressurize the air into, are located outside, and so basically we have like super cooled air or refrigerated air in the winter, which flash freezes our screens when they do this action you see right here on the left, where we blow off any debris that is accumulated onto the screens. And then again, we have a substandard electrical system and a backup generator that's a little less than reliable, but also undersized to power the entire site. Go ahead, next slide. So just some photos of the site. Again, those two big green boxes are the existing compressor units. You see they're conveniently located right next to our workstation there in the building. Those metal ducts in the top left picture, just on the far side of that, we have a whole server cabinet as well. So it's, again, the heat load that's provided from those cabinets, as well as the dust and whatnot, it's just not ideal, especially for our electronics equipment. Picture at the top right is, again, showing our main control cabinet there at the site, which, again, controls all of the automation for our lifeline to the El Dorado Canal. So bottom left is, again, those two compressor tanks, which are outside. Really, that doesn't hurt necessarily the tanks. It just makes operations very difficult in the winter when we get that chilled air. And then the bottom right is the existing propane generator, which, again, generally the district's found that the propane generators are not quite as reliable as our diesel generators. And again, this is also undersized for the site. The proposed facilities and construction under this project is, again, to construct a building around those tanks. So if you see on the bottom right, the white portion of the building is the existing controls building that the compressors are in. We're going to extend that building to the north to house those two compressor tanks, and then also move those compressors outside of, or from within that electrical portion of the building into right next there to the compressor tanks.
Can I ask a question? You talked about, there it is, I'm sorry. The question I had going back one, I don't want you to move the slide, is the internet connection, at least the computer connection. And you identified where the two network workstations are so close to the ventilation compressors, I guess, yeah.
Correct.
And there was a lot of dust. Now, the question, I think the real question is if you need to upgrade that equipment, how does the communication go between from the server to the main office?
I believe we have a designated T1 line there.
So you do have, okay, so.
Right. So the internet connectivity is not necessarily the issue. We're more
Okay.
concerned about the longevity of the
Of the
electrical
equipment,
components that
yes.
are in the building. Correct.
Right, so sometimes the equipment can get yeah.
Right. Overheated, and then again, anytime you have anything that's rushing air through an electrical room, usually you want that filtered at a minimum.
Right.
Ideally, you just take it out of there so that you're not mixing process air with clean air that the electronics prefer.
Or you need another filter inside the room.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So moving on to the construction contract, you did. We bid this project beginning in February of 2023. We had 6 general contractors attend the mandatory pre-bid meeting, and we ultimately received 4 bids, which are listed. Of those 4 bids, we believe that the top 3 are within a reasonable band, so we do believe that we have a competitive bid. It is important to note that we did previously bid this project. We had a much wider band, and I think we had 3 proposals on that. So at that point, we rejected all bids, kind of refined our approach, and again, rebid it this last February. It is also important to note that the bid price kind of substantially exceeds our engineer's estimate. However, I think this has been typical of what we've seen lately, both here at the HQ Backup Power project and most recently in our Deer Creek blower project, in that we just see, you know, the inflation's hitting us, especially with anything that involves electrical equipment or electrical services. Again, we believe we've received by having the first 3 bids within about 15%. This project is exempt from CEQA, and if the board approves, the staff will file a notice exemption with the county. As far as project funding goes, again, we are asking for funding for the low bid in the amount of $805,000. Construction engineering services through the design consultant for $77,000, capitalized labor $60,000, a project contingency of $94,000 for a total funding request of $1,037,091. The project is scheduled to, by contract, to go to construction August 1. We'd expect about a 3-month construction window for the project. Given that, staff is recommending option 1, which is to award a contract to T&T Industrial Contractors Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $805,730 for construction of the diversion facility upgrades project, and authorize additional funding of $77,361 for engineering construction support, $60,000 for capitalized labor, and $94,000 in project contingency for a total funding request of $1,037,091 for the diversion facility upgrades project, project number 21008, which staff has determined is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Director Osborne?
Are we going to be requiring to shut the flume down during this process? Because that's right at the height of ag irrigation season, I mean.
No, we're not, that's one of the contingencies of the contract, is that the facility remains intact the entire duration of the construction. Ideally, what they're gonna do is, they'll construct the building and then one by one move one compressor, move the other compressor, hook up the electrical and go from there. So we'll require a construction staging plan and make sure that.
So the flume will stay in operation?
Correct.
And forebay will remain?
Outside of our normal, I think that's gonna butt right up against the normal outage. So, but for just the normal construction, we're gonna require them to have the facility basically.
Historically, that's when the winery guys do their first irrigation at the end of July, 1st of August.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, they'll just be mobilizing on site. I would guess that the bulk of that first construction window is gonna be constructing the building and closing those tanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on the project? Director Dwyer?
I'll move option 1 with a comment. It's kind of ludicrous that we're going to spend $1 million to try to keep fish out of the flumes and canals that feed into Forebay Reservoir, while we have Fish and Game stock Forebay Reservoir with fish. Have we pursued any kind of trying to get an exemption so we would avoid this? Are we too far down the road, or?
Logic
Those
has
are
nothing to
great
do with it.
questions. I would probably lean on Brian Deason or maybe Dan to address that.
Tell us why, Dan.
To give you good news. So the shortest possible answer is not a short answer. The shortest answer is when the district acquired and then subsequently relicensed Project 184, the diversion facilities and the fishway, as they describe it, the fish screen and ladder, were exhibits, were components of the license, which were mandated through the settlement process. The FERC license has a standard article, I believe it's Article 18, it's a fishway prescription. So the short answer is no. Unfortunately. It doesn't mean that we this is from an operational standpoint, this is a really important investment that allows this water to maintain, during those cold weathers, that eighth inch stainless steel wedge wire, that ice builds on there, it reduces diversions, which then go directly to revenues. So it's really important that it's a wise investment. I know it's a lot, but it's the proper investment that should have been made initially. So, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second before we?
I'll second it.
Thank you,
Keeps the
Director
veins
Anzini.
open.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're looking for comment. Any comments or questions of the public?
Logic has nothing to do with it.
All right, anybody online, Jen?
Members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 9, option 1, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Anzini. Now is your time. President Vierkamp, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 9. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. We are now to review of assignments. Jen, any-
Could I ask what?
Yes, please, Director Osborne.
It's probably not possible yet, but in the near future, I'd like an assessment on the Echo conduit because of this winter's, severe winter. If we have a break in that line, we would have a serious environmental issue, and we'd be in jeopardy. So I'd like, an assessment on that, how that thing stands. You may not even be able to get into it now, but, okay?
And then I just wanted to remind the board members to review the tentative items for the next meeting.
All right, we are adjourned.